all right.
Just so the cameraman.
Mayor, you on?
Mayor, you're on.
Gonna bang the gavel from over there.
Muscatine City Council will come to order. Gaveling in from the podium tonight for obvious reasons. Welcome, everyone, to council chambers. Greg, would you perform a roll call, please?
Certainly, Mayor. Councilmember Spread.
Present.
Councilmember Phillips.
Present.
Bynum.
Present.
Shahade.
Present.
Nantfig.
Present.
Fitzgerald.
Present.
And Lorette.
Present.
All present, Your Honor.
Very good, Greg. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special presentation this evening, which is why I'm at the podium and not at my desk. About 1 year ago, 5 months and a few days, I became the mayor of the city of Muscatine. Little did I know that the mayor of Muscatine would soon meet a man that would become the leader of the largest populated country in the world. However, given the man's history and his current status as China's vice president, and the fact that he insisted on revisiting Muscatine after many years, just lost my light there, where he held a group of people in very high regard, I felt it only proper that he be presented with his second key to the city of Muscatine. Tonight I'd like to recognize a gentleman whom I've only known for about a year, but whom I've grown very fond of over that period, as he's worked very diligently and with the blessings of his employer to maximize relationships between the community of Muscatine, Iowa, and the community of Jinding County in Hebei Province in the People's Republic of China. The Mayor's Muscatine China Initiative Committee was formed shortly after President Xi Jinping's visit in February of 2012. The goals are very simple: to create and nurture people-to-people relationships with our new friends in Jinding County, explore possible exchange opportunities between students and teachers in both communities, and to offer business and or trade opportunities between our two communities. This gentleman has been the field general, the field marshal, if you will, working both in China and in Iowa, and especially in Muscatine, to make all three goals happen. He is a native of China, but is a U.S. citizen, currently residing in Urbandale, Iowa, with his 3 daughters and lovely wife, Lily. Perhaps one day they will consider a move to Muscatine. He works for Musco Lighting in Oskaloosa, Iowa, where he is Director of Asian Sales for Musco. And I could be up here for hours telling you about the many things he has done for Muscatine to grow our relationship with China, but instead I think I'd like to just introduce you to the next recipient of the key to the city of Muscatine, Mr. Albert Liu. Albert has a speech prepared, right?
Yes, I do.
Please, Albert.
Yeah. I don't have a speech prepared, but I will talk from my heart. Mayor, my buddy, we do this all the time in the field, and the council members, manager, all my old friends and new friends today. I'm so excited and honored to have this very special award, which I think is the highest I ever could receive in my whole life, because it means so much to me. Thank you so very much, Mayor. And first of all, I'd like to thank this city. This city means so much to me. It is so special when I first got to know you guys, because this city are full of people. When President Xi said, "To me, you are America," I would repeat it. To me, you are America. You are genuine, friendly, and that may be why I chose Iowa as my home forever. And I want to thank the mayor for his leadership, and I want to thank all my committee members, that from Sarah and Doyle, Tony, and Keith, Joni, everyone. I also want to thank Representative Lofgren. He gave us this tremendous support. So it's a teamwork make it happen. It's not me, myself. And also I want to thank my employer, my team, the Musco team in Oskaloosa, Musco team here in Muscatine, And the Moscow team in China, we have about 200 people working there. When I do the help, my team members help me. So once again, it's not me, it's a teamwork. And the one person I want to thank most is Mr. Joe Crookham. He is the founder of Moscow. Without him, I would not have worked for Moscow. I would not have the chance to know you guys. He has the vision, and he has the capability to develop the business worldwide. And because of him, he has this Moscow plant in Moscow team for 30 years, create the best job we can dream of here. So thank Joe so much. He supported me. He said, Albert, do what you can to help Moscow team to develop a unique relationship with China, because he believes this relationship will bring prosperity to this community. And the last but not least, I want to thank my dear wife, Lily. And she is my boss. Without her, I cannot do anything. Unfortunately, she cannot make it today, but she will be here. And I know that this key is crucial. With this key, I can open any door in the city. So tonight, I'm going to go to Dan's bank to open the bank, get the cash, and then we're going to buy a house. We're going to move here. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Albert, I'd like you to introduce yourself. In the front.
Congratulations, Albert.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Muscatine.
Thank you very much, my honor. Thank you.
Albert, congratulations, and thank you very much for all you've done for Muscatine and the things. Thank you.
Congratulations, Albert.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Albert, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And certainly thank you, Albert, for what you do for our community. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move some things around on the agenda this evening. Item number 6 is going to be, I guess, on the stage right now. Greg?
Great, thanks very much. I'm going to pass around some pictures to share with you why I chat with you a little bit about the proposed TIF program. Also in the audience tonight is Mr. Gordon Sevig. So if you have any questions for Mr. Sevig after I run through the parameters of the TIF agreement, feel free to ask him as well. Go ahead and start passing these around. Some tentative pictures of the site and the facility. So tonight, what we're doing is talking a little bit about a proposed TIF agreement, terms and conditions for both the developer and for the city. Bringing this forward as this exceeds the 10 years and 50% that the city administrator can move forward. So what I'll do briefly is run through what the developer proposes as part of the agreement, and then what we as staff would propose as well as part of the TIF agreement. So what we're looking at is a 567,000 square foot warehouse and distribution facility, 540 feet by 1,050 feet, minimum assessed value of about $18 million. As part of the agreement, of course, the developer would agree to meet all city requirements, building code, fire code, planning, subdivisions, hard servicing requirements, et cetera. Right now, we're looking at employment levels of about 29 employees and an annual payroll of not less than $1.129 million. In addition to the facility, we're looking at some infrastructure improvements, extending 49th Street, a potential new street adjacent to the north property line. That street would be built to city specifications. It's my understanding that that would not be dedicated at this point, but could be dedicated down the road should the adjacent property develop. In addition to those items, of course, typical agreements include timely payment of taxes, legal fees on part of the developer as well. On the city's behalf, what we're looking at is a 10-year agreement. And we looked at a couple different scenarios for that 10-year program. We looked at 5 years at 100%, 5 years at 50% as program number 1, and program number 2, 3 years at 100, 3 years at 80, 1 year at 60%, 3 years at 50%. Both of these programs have an estimated rebate amount of about $4.778 million. over the term of the agreement. As part of the agreement, we would waive connection fees against the portion of the property comprising of the public right-of-way and any stormwater detention. We'd have a maximum rebate amount of $5 million, and the agreement would be subject to annual appropriation as well. Two other quick items. One other item, I guess, as well, regarding the annual appropriation. If we didn't do the annual appropriation, this would butt us up against our self-imposed debt limit. An item that we'll be bringing back later on this year to talk about with some of our financial policies about changing or eliminating that self-imposed program. But with the annual rebate, you only count the annual amount that's rebated to the developer rather than the entire amount of the agreement. So it's in our favor to do that in regards to our debt limit. Those are the basic terms and conditions that we're proposing. What we'd like to do is bring back a public hearing, or setting a public hearing at our next regular meeting, and bring back a TIF agreement subsequently, working with our bond counsel, John Danos in Des Moines, and working with the developer, of course, to do that. We've already provided a copy of the Fridley agreement, which they've taken a look at and tweaked a few times themselves, so we're aware of the basic terms that we typically use as part of a TIF agreement. So again, it's a pretty basic program, and I can answer any questions you might have, or obviously the developers here and can answer any questions. I think this is a really this is a great program, a good development for the city of Muscatine, and it's my understanding that the developer, the warehouse facility, will be working with GPC and Kent Nutrition Group, and providing services to that local business as well. So we're at staff level pretty excited about this program. I think it's a good development for the city, and we'd like to, it's our recommendation to proceed along these basic terms.
Council, questions?
What was the breakdown in the second plan? It was 5 and 3 and 2? Or?
5 years, 3 years at 100%, 3 years at 80%, 1 year at 60, 3 at 50. Both programs come out to the same amount. Developer favors program number 1. We see no reason to object to that. Again, the number is an estimated rebate of just over $4.778 million, with an minimum assessed value of an $18 million project. Obviously, that we don't set the assessed value, and that could come in higher, obviously lower. I mean, going forward, comes in higher. Obviously, the developer would receive a higher rebate, and of course, the city would benefit as well.
Did you say we're going to have to change our self-imposed limit?
We talked about that at budget time already. I mean, that's a self-imposed limit. It's not a state-imposed limit. We talked about coming back with some recommendations when we updated our financial policies.
Right.
Based on this program, we would not have to do it if we include the annual appropriation.
Okay, so we would not have to take any action on that?
Not at present, no.
Okay.
Anyone else, Council?
Establishing the debt has to precede the TIF, right? To validate the TIF?
Yeah,
you have
incur the, you have to incur the debt.
The debt.
Yeah, absolutely. We incur the debt that allows us to rebate the developer.
And the total amount is, this is what, basically the maximum amount that city administrator is
It comes back.
given authority to.
It exceeds that amount, therefore it has to come back to city council at an in-depth session rather than going straight to an agreement. Right. If it was 10 years at 50%, we'd simply put the agreement together, bring that for council action after a public hearing, of course. But because it exceeds those amounts, we do it at an in-depth session first.
Okay.
Anyone else, Council? Very good. Thank you, Greg.
Did you have any questions for Mr. Sevig as well?
I was just curious how many loading docks or spaces are involved?
Could we ask you, gentlemen, to approach the podium? And for the record, just give us your name, please.
My name is Gordon Sevig, and there'll be 36 loading docks. and some access doors. We one large access door for a truck to get in if there's big equipment to go in or out of the building, but 36 doors with levelers. They'll be on both sides of the building. There'll be 18 on the other side. And
do we know at this point who the developer is?
the developer is Wallview Developments. This is a family business. My children and son-in-law.
Okay.
And we have 3 members of the family that's full-time employees that are full-time with the company, and my other daughters are a couple of them does something else, but there's 3 of us, 4 counting me, and they'll soon run me out. But there's 3 full-time children in there all the time, and we started out in Wofford with our warehousing. We have about 14,000 square feet at Wofford, and presently we're a little over 800,000 square foot of warehouse, not counting this new building.
And the aerial photograph is the existing facility.
Yeah, that's our existing facility in Wofford. The one that's about 17 years old now, and we worked with GPC here for 20 years, hauling their product. And I guess I've fed Kent Feed since the middle 50s, so I'm quite familiar with Kent, and also was a dealer for them for a while up in Wofford, Iowa. So.
Contract specifically says Wallview Developments Limited Company / GSTC Logistics Incorporated.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or Steve, did you have any comments at this point? Okay.
What would be the timetable to complete the project?
We're
roughly
really we're awfully optimistic, but we want to have it done by January 1st if we can. So, weather permitting, and then we get all our permitting, we're ready to go. The building's ordered. In fact, everything's pretty much ordered. It's just to tell them to go ahead with it. So.
Next steps would be for council to set a public hearing at our next regular meeting in June at this point, and then follow up with the actual agreement for consideration subsequent to the public hearing.
Do they need it faster than that?
What we typically indicate is that once you've come to the in-depth session and there's a consensus to move forward, that they can move ahead with the community development office and site plan review at that point in time.
So are you looking for a consensus tonight, Greg?
If there's no objection, we'll proceed upon those based upon those terms.
Any objections, folks?
See any?
Right, we will
Move
do that.
forward. Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Gordon.
coming down here tonight.
Thank the council.
Welcome to Muscatine, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is actually item number 3, Blue Zones update. Joni Axel. Welcome, Joni.
Mayor, Council, it's nice to be here. I know I'm not the first messenger to address you on the Blue Zones project. I am occupying a new spot called the Community Program Manager for the Muscatine Blue Zones project. So that's my official title. Unofficially, I'm just here to be a partner with not only the city, but with many of our other community interests, including schools, restaurants, grocery stores, and all kinds of other organizations to celebrate not only that we got designated as a Blue Zones community, but now we are trying to achieve a certification. And so those are the magic words. The certification will be achieved if we, as a community, and we're all kind of in this together, if we can complete some pledges and try to go forward with some actions, both official policy actions as well as community-wide actions to achieve the certification. And one might say, well, after that, then what? I would say, I think you all know this because you've been involved on this level longer than I have, but you know, then what really is represented by a sustainability. The Blue Zones project, in its rawest definition, is an effort to increase the well-being of our community. And that's not all about going on a diet and having right vegetables. It's way deeper than that, and it has a lot to do with just providing some livability in our community that we'd like to enhance. So I think most of you, as I said, have heard that pitch before. I'm happy to be here with it again. You know, our neighbors and friends probably will be able to walk a little bit better and bike a little bit better and have some more community and some more relationships with other people as a result of our efforts, and yours too, with the Blue Zones project. I know you received some information in your packet, and I tried to limit it to a measurable pinch, and I'm hoping that you had a chance to look at it. The Blue Zones has furnished us with just a really nice bunch of Technicolor additional information. So I'm going to ask Tom to pass these down. It's my card, and I know that this is a cameo appearance tonight, and I asked for an hour, and he said 10 minutes. So we'll pass this down, and you please do feel free to contact me in any way. So this is the additional propaganda. It also has some interesting information about some well-being index that was measured in 2012. That will happen again in 2014, and we know we're going to move the needle at least a little bit. So there you go, Tom. That's my pitch. That I know I risk your having more paper to throw away, but maybe just give it a peek. It's kind of enticing. The major activity that we'd like to invite the City Council to take a look at and to adopt is a resolution. And you did receive this in your packet. It is for consideration tonight. I believe, Greg, that any action would be taken at your meeting on the 16th. It basically says that the city is aware of and subscribes to the Blue Zones principles. They are listed on the resolution. There also is a list of potential pledge actions that can be taken by the city, and for the most part, many of those, almost all of them, require City Council, if not voting approval, at least nodding approval. And so we want to make sure that you understand that. They are listed, and I'm sure you took a look at it. We can go over it again before the next meeting. But the big caveat here is that there's no unrealistic expectation of the city and the council. This is a list of intentions. It certainly is, all of the Blue Zones resolutions you will be found to be, first of all, non-binding. I don't like to start there, but that is a fact. And secondly, the Blue Zones project in general is very aware of public bodies' budgets and public bodies' timing. So if you take a favorable look at this list on the resolution that you see, these are aspirational, and I would say that they're all pretty, within a time frame. They probably can be accomplished. There are some reasons why the City Council would like to take a harder look at some of these things, and we certainly understand that. That's why I'm here. I'd be happy to answer questions. I'd also be happy to get phone calls or be called back. We'll see if Greg does that, huh?
And specifically on the resolution, the resolution is not all encompassing. It does not include all of the community policy actions that are listed in this paperwork. We have to get a certain number of points as part of our contribution to the overall Blue Zones designation. We can substitute some of those if there's a particular policy in here that the council would rather see that's not on the resolution. So take a look at that between now and our next meeting, and if there's something that you'd rather proceed with and bring back to the body, we can certainly substitute that in the resolution. So that's for you to take a look at. The action steps that are in there now are basically our recommendations based on things that are coming forward already, things that we think we can easily achieve over the next 18 months, 2 years. The comprehensive plan is coming forward, so obviously a bike and a pedestrian master plan are two components that we can put together relatively easy, and it's already in the works. So take a look at those, and we can discuss exactly what we include in the resolution at our next meeting.
I would like to say how proud I am to be able to work with a city that was leagues ahead of many. And there are many of these. These are policy matters, and there are many basic concepts that the city of Muscatine has already embraced as aspirational. Yes, Bob?
How many people do you already have committed to participate?
Here's where the rub is. We had originally 20,000 population, 20,000 people who just checked the box and signed up for the blue zones. Now the challenge is to get all of those people to take an action. And this is all done online. And I don't like to always admit that I'm technologically challenged, but most of you know that. And so there is a need for people who signed up to be a Blue Zones participant to go back into the website and take an action. And actions are easy. You can all do that. So, but I could give you exact directions and you know, the 4 or 5 steps you got to take.
How many committees are existing right now with the?
That's a good question.
Your jurisdiction?
There are 10 subject matter committees. City, schools, walking school bus, grocery stores, restaurants. And then there are 4 that are intriguing and fun. One is called the Purpose Committee. Another one is called the Volunteering Committee. Another one is called the MOAI Committee, M-O-A-I, which is a gathering up similar to what the city's already doing out at the mall with walkers and saying, come on out, walk, keep track of your minutes. Let's keep our community moving. And then the last one is called I can't remember one. Community policy. I said that. That was city, yeah, community policy. Worksite. Oh, gee, I forgot Greg's committee. Greg Jenkins is here as the chair of the Worksite Committee, which of course should have been billed first. So all of those committees exist, Bob, and we have a lot of activities that will increase the volunteer participation. I would say we have at least 150 signed on the dotted line of individuals in the city to participate, and there are many, many more.
Is this the city, or is this the county, or the county and city?
It's just the city.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the city because that's how they operate. You'll see by all the materials that you're seeing that it's kind of a prescribed activity, and it is measured. There's a measurement going in, and there'll be a measurement when we do achieve that certification. You want to throw anything else in the?
Joni, when you say it's just the city, you're not talking about just the zip code, 52761.
Let me clarify. The city it includes the school district. And when it comes to signing up for to be a participant in the Blue Zones project, the 52761 zip code is the key. But we have many people who work in our work sites, so they can use their work site 52761. And that will all those directions are yet to come, but that will be possible. But in the end of the day, that is, again, how this is all measured. It's a very intriguing thing.
I just needed clarification on that because there are some housing additions outside the corporate city limits that are 52761 zippers.
That's right. Yes, that's right. The 52761 is fine, and the school district is fine.
So it's corporate limits.
Yeah. Yes, the corporate limits. That is what we're looking at within the school district. So, I mean, the school district goes outside that. So
that's for participation, but everyone in the county will see the benefits to the as we move forward over the 18 months. Restaurants, eating healthier, trails, everything. Everybody will see the benefits.
One last thing I do want to share with you, and I hope everybody kind of embraces this adventure. The state of Iowa is a prototype. It's never been done. Parallel to the Blue Zones effort in Iowa is the governor's. We're going to be the healthiest state in the union, and we have a ways to go on that. And so the state of Iowa is the first statewide effort done with this Healthways organization. It's sponsored by Wellmark. Sponsored means it doesn't have to be Wellmark policyholders. So we are all an experiment. So everything we see, we go together with the state group. We have never done this before. So we're all learning along the way. I hope I can answer your questions before you ask them. Thank you very much. And thank you for being good partners. You have been all the way along. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Okay, folks, number 4 on tonight's agenda, Housing Smoking Policy Review. Caitlin and Courtney.
Good evening. I'm Caitlin Love. I'm the Assistant Administrator for the Housing Department. Dick can't be here tonight. He's sorry about that. You have before you tonight a memo, resolution, and implementation plan and notice to tenants regarding our proposed smoke-free housing policy. We're proposing that policy would go into effect July 1st. This came about because HUD has made strong recommendations since 2009 that federally assisted housing be smoke-free. And they're making those recommendations because the tenants that we serve through the public housing program are demographically the most at risk for secondhand smoke exposure and the diseases related to that. This policy would take effect for the Clark House, which is for people 50 and older, and also for Sunset Park, which is our family complex, where we have 50 families, 77 kids as of today down there living. So we started working on this through some resident meetings in January of this year, and Courtney's been very involved with that. She's our housing coordinator. She's been probably the most involved staff person in working with the committee that was developed by residents to make a determination about what policies would be appropriate and how they want to pursue that. They've met several times and done surveys of the residents and developed a policy and now revised the policy, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about how that process has gone and where the policy stands today.
Good evening. I want to talk a little bit about the committee and how it was developed. After the research that we did, it was determined that a steering committee should be formed. The steering committee was formed with 2 members from each of the following groups: the resident advisory board, the Sunset Park Resident Association, and the Clark House Residential Council. Those people were appointed through those meeting groups, and we met a total of 7 times. Throughout those meetings, we developed a survey that was then passed out to all Sunset Park and Clark House residents, and with that information that we got back, we determined that the majority of the people living at those sites were interested in going smoke-free. Now, we had about 65 surveys returned total. We sent out, I think, 150, I believe. So it was a small return, but the majority of those surveys returned were in favor. After that, with that information that we gathered, we also then held 2 open forum meetings, one at the Clark House and one at Sunset Park, and we had a large turnout at the Clark House, and that gave people an opportunity to voice their opinions about what we were proposing, ask any questions that they had, and generally get an idea of what sort of direction we were going. And at Sunset Park, we had a very, very small turnout, but they were smokers within that complex and were in favor of this proposal based on the fact that they have children living in their houses. The steering committee then developed a proposal, and we revised it several different times, and the proposal was based on the personal feelings from what we've heard from people in the forum, and then also how we have smokers, non-smokers, and former smokers all on the committee. So they were able to really give a good sort of background about how they feel about this proposal. Now, the recommendation that we have in place is that no smoking would be allowed anywhere inside the buildings at Sunset Park or Clark House. At the Clark House, smoking would be allowed in the front and back in designated areas outside. We would also designate an area on our 5th floor patio for smoking. E-cigarettes would currently be allowed to be used within the units. Now, at Sunset Park, all outside areas would be considered a smoking area unless otherwise designated. There wouldn't be any smoking allowed inside their units, but they could smoke on their front and back patios. The area around the Learning Center and then also the playgrounds would be designated as non-smoking. Now, violations of smoking has been a very large concern of our residents and some council members. So we looked at that, and The proposal would be that those people moving in to the building as of June 1st would not be allowed to smoke in their units. However, the people that currently live at the Clark House would be allowed to continue to smoke in their apartments for up to 1 year if they can show us that they're attempting to quit smoking, that they're working on some sort of plan, either with assistance from New Horizons, a medical professional, whatever that may be. No current tenant would be evicted solely for violating this smoking policy. Now, the housing staff, myself and Chad Yoakum, who's the manager at Sunset Park, would provide any sort of recommendations that, or referrals that we can access for low cost or free assistance with that smoking cessation. Any violations to the proposed, or to the guidelines would be handled on an individual basis. It's a very difficult thing to police, so obviously there would be some consideration of any sort of reporting that's done among the tenants. Our primary concern, like Caitlin had stated earlier, is the health of the people that we serve, which is, at least in my building, is primarily elderly, and then at Sunset Park is our children. We're looking at trying to role model some positive behaviors for our children, and then also improve some of the breathing area within our buildings at the Clark House, because we do have quite a few people in the building that do have some issues with respiratory problems and such. So, any questions?
I could use some clarification on
Okay.
paragraph 1. What happens after the 1 year?
What happens after the 1 year? That's something that Dick and I discussed, and after the 1 year would be when we would start talking about it being a violation of their of the house rules, the guidelines, the smoking guidelines. But like we said in number 2, that we would not be evicting someone solely for violating the smoking guidelines. We've had some success already in the building of people who are long-term smokers. When we first started talking about this, I had one guy that said, "There's absolutely no way you'll ever make me quit." And he's actually did it all on his own and is smoke-free for 3 months now. And we have some other people who are smokers and are making some attempts. So I'm really hoping that this is not going to be an issue. We have people who are already making those steps of going outside on a regular basis. It's a little easier now that the weather's a little nicer. So come winter, that would be a discussion that we would have to have. But I have no interest in kicking out anybody, really. I mean, for anything if I don't have to. And I would hope that I can provide some assistance if we need to and work with the people.
How many residents are in Clark House now?
We have 100, and we actually just did inspections of each apartments as our regular annual inspections, and it's 11% of the building is smokers. So there's 100 units. And
Okay. Any other questions, council?
It sounds like you've tried to work out a pretty
yeah, we did a lot of
challenging
research of this and tried to share and be as open as possible with our tenants.
Do you have some examples of what penalties might be in the event of violations?
Of what?
Smoking violations?
What
the penalties, some of the penalties might be?
Well, typically now, if someone violates their lease or the general rules of the building, I would talk with them, and they may not necessarily be written up as a violation, but I would talk with them and find out what the situation is and see if it's something that was an unintentional thing or possibly an intentional thing. And I generally make a note in the file. If it's something that becomes more severe, it's repeated, there is an actual lease violation that we place. They have the ability to contest that, and there is a whole grievance procedure before anybody could ever come to a position where they would be evicted. And that grievance procedure goes through a third party. So whatever decision I may possibly make, that third party could overrule it after hearing both sides of the situation.
But they would not be evicted solely for
Right.
violation of that policy.
Yeah, and that's what we're writing, why we made that change, because we don't want somebody who's so used to living in the building for 15 years and smoking, just kind of making some bad decision. We don't want to evict them or get rid of them based solely on that.
Probably, Mayor, the most severe outcome of that, with a repeated violation that's been verified and that sort of thing, would be that notice of lease violation that would go to the tenant and be kept in the file. But that would not be the only, we would not evict based
I
solely
guess what I'm
on
getting
that.
at is there a 3-strike, 4-strike, 5-strike and you're out policy or?
Some of it depends on what sort of rules that they violate. In the instance of violence or drugs, there's a one-strike policy, you're out. But in the instance of this,
Specific to smoking is what I'm referring to.
because we're not going to evict solely for smoking, honestly, I would have to say that it would be an ongoing thing, and it would just be a discussion between myself and that tenant. However, you could face eviction if you have other issues in your apartment or other issues with neighbors. You know, if you have one write-up of smoking, but you have 4 of something else, you could, because of that, face eviction.
Okay, very good, thank you. Council, any questions?
So what if someone spends the entire year saying that they are going to go through the cessation process, but they don't make any attempt because of financial constraints or some reason, maybe they just don't want to do it, is that means for eviction, or are they still
No.
on this
I mean,
list of
at that point, if they've made the attempt, or even if they haven't made the attempt because they don't have any interest in doing it, after that year, then I would have to really encourage them to start going outside and following that sort of guideline. I would make the note that, you know, they did continue to, after that year, continue to smoke in their apartments. And, you know, in the way that it's written, because we're not going to evict anybody, we have to trust that those people living in the buildings will take other people that live in the buildings, their health into consideration. That's
I just want to clarify, no evictions for existing tenants.
Right.
New
Correct.
tenants could be evicted for smoking in their room.
right. That's
somebody
in that,
moving in from June 1st
that's in that
on.
first paragraph.
Yep.
Or, excuse me, not the first paragraph, but it is in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I realize.
Anyone else, council? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Moving on down the agenda, item 5, discussion concerning placement of roundabout at intersection of Logan and Cedar Streets. Randy, do you have that?
I'm going to start with that, Your Honor, and Randy's going to hopefully help me out. He had a PowerPoint lesson before the meeting.
Well, I think that the term tonight was used by Joni as far as being technologically challenged here, but we'll give it a shot.
Great. And Randy may chime in during the presentation as well as we go through. I'm going to start out with the PowerPoint presentation, and then the second handout you have in the packet as well, and then we'll put up a copy of the design for Cedar and Logan. So just a quick introduction to the project and the process we've been going through. At present, we have an IDOT bid letting date of September 2013 for the Cedar Street project. IDOT deadline for final plans is May 28th. Should we make any changes to the plans? IDOT may allow us to proceed using a change order process, but we have not, we'll have to clarify that depending on whether or not council moves forward with this, or there's a consensus to move forward. As part of the being a Blue Zone demonstration site, the community has begun to receive the benefits of having those outside experts. Many of you were at the session over at the History and Industry Center with Dan Burden and his team of experts. That started, or kind of kicked off the process. We did a walk in the downtown area that day as well, and subsequent to that, we did 2 community-wide tours with staff and representatives from the Blue Zone team. And what we did is we looked at much of our infrastructure and the upcoming improvements in the community. We talked about trails, we talked about Cedar Street, we talked about Colorado, we talked about Hauser, we talked about the soccer complex, we talked about several trail programs, we talked about much of our infrastructure throughout the community and the upcoming projects. Dan and his team, as I noted, put together a presentation, and they will be putting their findings in writing, and we should be getting those in the next 2 weeks or so, based on what we've heard. Skipping to the next page. One of the key questions or issues that was brought forward during that discussion was the upcoming Cedar Street project and the issue of pedestrian safety, especially with the new trail going in as part of the Cedar Street project. After our community tour, we came back to my office, sat down around the table, and discussed the Logan and Cedar Street intersection in further detail. The expert recommendation was to place a roundabout at Logan and at the intersection of Cedar Street and Logan for several reasons. Number one being pedestrian safety. Roundabouts are a proven tool. There's several examples. There's several examples close by in Iowa City, Coralville area as well. But I'll give you some more information on that in a moment. So again, pedestrian safety is really the number one reason for consideration of a roundabout. Vehicle speeds are reduced, visibility is increased. Other design features, including a median or a safety zone, provide pedestrians a much safer means to cross Cedar Street. Vehicle safety, there's fewer accidents, the ability to keep traffic flowing, it's 30% more efficient. I'll talk about some of these facts and figures and supporting evidence here in a minute after the PowerPoint presentation.
I think also, Greg, at this point.
Sure, go ahead.
During this tour that we were on, and we were at Cedar Street, and we were just talking about the project itself, we were the ones that talked to Mr. Burden and said, you know, we still have some concerns about this Logan-Cedar intersection and how we're safely going to get pedestrians across the street there. That we've designed this, the design is fine, T-intersection, and yet there is just this unease about what we can expect there as far as speed of traffic, different options, and getting pedestrians across safely. And that's pretty much how this whole concept started evolving. And then we got back to Greg's office and talked about it a little bit more. But you know, that was our recognition. We still have to right now this a discomfort level about just the issues that we're going to talk about here.
And really the rush in bringing it forward is that May deadline that we have with IDOT and moving forward. Now, there's ways we can address that going forward. You know, right now, John has a preliminary design, IDOT has a peer review of that, and we're also talking to Dan Burden and his team going forward. So it does seem a bit rushed, but that really has to do with IDOT's deadlines going forward. Right now, we have an estimated or cost estimate at $35,000 to $50,000 over our projected cost for Cedar Street right now for installation of a roundabout. However, you know, long term, that does save us down the road. Potential installation of a signal at that site would cost about $150,000. Not saying that we're proposing that as part of the program, but if we want to signalize the intersection to provide safe pedestrian access, it would be about $150,000. And there is long-term maintenance that goes along with that. You could have a potential you could have 4 potential signals along Cedar Street going forward. We've talked about signals at Parham. There's a potential for signals at Logan Street for pedestrian safety. You've got signals that are going in at the high school intersection, and of course you've got signals already in place at Hauser. That's simply going to impede traffic and slow things down. This does not do that.
Greg, I would disagree with that statement.
Sure.
When we discussed the Cedar project, especially when we got into final discussions, I don't remember any discussion of signals at Logan or Parham. And the only comment I would make is if we decide to implement this proposal, it would be a $35,000 to $50,000 change order. We're not saving any money.
No.
There's no savings there.
It's an increased
So
cost. Yep.
It's just an increased cost.
We did talk about signals in the future at Parham. We have talked about that. We have not talked about signals at Logan. I mentioned Logan as a potential to get pedestrians safely across. That's why it's there. Additional issues best addressed by roundabout. Getting pedestrian, and we mentioned this one already, getting pedestrian traffic safely from the north side of Cedar Street to the south side, especially with the new trail going in as part of that project in the location that it's going in on the north side. Addresses potential for increase in speeds between Parham and the high school with the new 3-lane road. Provides a better solution for traffic entering Cedar from Logan Street. And solutions to address the above issues like signals have higher costs and lack the safety benefits that roundabouts do. Keys to success. If we proceed with a roundabout at this intersection, we want to make sure it's done right. This would be a first in our community, and really needs to be done right the first time. Thus, the need to work with IDOT, get the peer review done, make sure it's done appropriately and correctly. We recognize that it's a new concept. This has changed, and that sometimes change is difficult. But I do want to point out, that we're not the only ones that are recommending this. This is what the experts are telling us will work at this intersection. Negative comments, I really think in our discussions that those are due to a lack of understanding or use. People do fear change. There's plenty of examples in the state, the country, across the world where roundabouts are working and have worked. It can work here in Muscatine. The information I provided provides several resources, online resources. You can go to the you can go to the IDOT website, and there's a list of existing roundabouts in the state of Iowa. There's a list as well and photos of upcoming roundabout projects in the state of Iowa as well. You can get an idea of where they are and how they're working. There's a ton of good information on those websites. We do, again, we've got a preliminary design. Staff is working with IDOT and their peer review team, which is actually out of Wisconsin, and that peer review team focuses solely on designing roundabouts. Of course, as well as Mr. Burden and his team. Our goal tonight is not to design the intersection at the table tonight. We're looking to see if staff should move forward with this concept. If there's an interest on council's part, the council can support moving forward. Basically, we've got the deadlines that I mentioned earlier. IDOT's worked very well with us and are willing to work with us to try and get this in and meet their deadlines. But we need to make some type of decision moving forward. If the answer is yes, we'll continue to work with IDOT to see if we can't get a design and make it work with their process and lending schedule. I just want to talk a little bit about staff and community support. I thought it was interesting, and I wanted to note that this intersection has received unanimous support at the staff level, and I wanted to point that out. I listed the folks that I'm talking about there tonight. Additional support, we've received comments of support from the Blue Zones group, the staff, chairs of the Community Policy Committee, the Traffic Committee as well, and of course the experts that are recommending this at Logan and Cedar. What we're going to be asking for after discussions tonight, to see if there's a consensus to move forward and work with IDOT to include the roundabout at the intersection of Cedar and Logan. A couple things regarding timing. Right now, this project is set for a September IDOT bid letting for the project. If we meet the May 28th deadline, we can still meet that time frame. There's a second option. We do not have the go-ahead or the okay from IDOT at this point, but we could potentially treat it as a change order to the project as well after the project is let. And depending on how the design process goes and moves forward, there's nothing preventing this project to be bid over the winter with a March letting date as well, depending on the interest in proceeding. Before I go to the other information, Randy, anything you want to add at this point?
I think that you have provided them with a lot of information for them to look at. In my opinion, it's not a matter of trying to overwhelm you with statistics. I think that there's a certain feel that you have, certain experiences that you've had if you've used them. The most important thing is that we want to do it right if we do it, but we're driven by three things. That's pedestrian safety, slowing traffic, and making efficient traffic movement at Logan and Cedar, which has been a problem. We have designed this the way that we were directed to design it, and think that the design is pretty good. But I still think that there are going to be issues in the future with that intersection at Cedar and Logan with the way it's currently designed. And with the exception of Councilmember Lorette, apparently traffic signals might be something that might go in the future. Somebody might suggest we put in three-way stop signs, a roundabout. These are all just options to be considered. But right now, we are moving traffic, kids, on the north side of the road to the south side of the road, a school, a Y, neighborhoods, and Council, you've been out there, you've seen it, you know what it's like. The speed on this road is going to increase. You're going to make this a three-lane concrete road. It's going to be nice. Speed's going to increase. We see that on any road that we upgrade. And that is going to present some problems for us in the future. So, Greg, Mayor, also, there may be some people that want to comment before the council gets in the discussion on this. And I think that Greg and I talked about it today, and this is a conversation that, we are more than happy to share or answer questions, but it's one that you need to have among yourselves. So,
before we open it up, I'm not going to run through this information. You can certainly read that at your leisure. This information is pulled off the IDOT website. It talks about the benefits of roundabouts, fewer crashes, lower vehicle speeds, fewer vehicle delays, pollution, and on down the road. On that second page, there's a list of multiple resources on roundabouts. If you're interested in taking a look at those, you can also do that at your leisure. The next page is a piece on public opinion on roundabouts and how they changed after folks used those roundabouts. That's from Washington State's Department of Transportation. An interesting piece about roundabouts in the USA by an engineer, Michael Walworth, who's an engineer that Mr. Dan Burden has worked with, is included in here as well as a piece, two-page piece, Walk This Way, by Dan Burden, talking about many ways in which to improve, make your community a healthier, more valuable place to live, one of those being the potential use of roundabouts. I'm not going to go through that in detail, but there's a lot of good information in there for you to take a look at.
Anything else, Greg?
Nope.
Okay, I would like to open the microphone up for public comments. Roger, can you step up to the microphone, please? And for record-keeping purposes, tell us who you are.
Where you live. Your
My name's Roger Landy. I live at 515 West 2nd Street.
Thank you.
And I have some opinions about roundabouts based not on experience in Muscatine, obviously, but based on long experience in Coralville. When I was in law school, which is not during your tenure, was the Sarah and I lived in Hawkeye Apartments in Iowa City, and her mother owned a farm, a not valuable farm at the time. It was not a good farm, lots of timber, lots of bottom ground, and it was north of, on what is First Avenue now in Iowa City, a gravel road at that time when we were there. And we, in ensuing years, after leaving law school and coming out here, went there to fish in the farm pond. While I was in law school, I went back to a high school avocation over a long weekend and ran a trap line on the little creek that goes by Kate Wickham School there. So I was quite familiar with the gravel road that went up there, and development came and things changed as over the years as we were visiting in and out of there, and the farm was later sold to the developers of the Brown Deer Golf Course and those kinds of things. And we watched a roundabout be developed at the intersection right next to where one of the Central State Bank affiliates is located at that intersection. And we'd seen roundabouts and traveling in Europe and elsewhere, and I didn't like them very well because, especially, you know, if you're looking at a roundabout and the signs are in French and you're trying to figure out that, it was confusing. But by the time that we went through the education up there, because my two granddaughters went to Kate Wickham School as time passed on, and our daughter lives in a house which has her mother's name in the abstract, so that because it was ground that they sold from that farm. What I discovered was that as that developed, and I got used to it and comfortable with it, and other things came about, I started talking to the engineers up there, and what I discovered was they found that, as one of them told me, our accident rate went south, way down. Better yet, we get scrapes and fender benders when the ones do occur. And when we had a larger number of accidents, a certain percentage of those are T-boners. And T-boners can total two vehicles and kill people. And he just was highly impressive. I can only say that I tried to contact them today, get current information on it, but I do know that while I watched the arguments there over the development, is that these number of years later, they have, I don't know how many, but they have 6 to 10 roundabouts within the city at different locations. So it's worked for them, and I think it's worth the money, Mark. I think that the citizens will avoid a lot of bigger problems than getting irritated at trying to figure out how to go around it. And, you know, it's not hard to figure out once you do it a few times, but it it's new, it's different. Automatically, a lot of us are going to oppose it, as I did in my mind a long time ago.
Thank you, Roger. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Don?
My name's Don Krings. I'm the transportation supervisor for Muscatine Schools. First of all, I want to applaud the council for the Cedar Street project. It's going to be a great project when it's done. It's going to be beautiful, much better than it is now. With the school and in my position, and I know I'm not alone, I'm sure you all feel the same, that you're concerned about the safety of the kids that are walking to and from school, whether they're going home or to the Y. And I think if this roundabout can improve the safety of those kids, it should be done now as opposed to later. The other thing that for us as drivers allows us, if we forget a student at the high school or at one of the other, or at their home in that area, there's just not a lot of places to turn around there. And a roundabout would be a great, quick way to get back. Right now, if you go around the block, it's quite a ways. The traffic turning left onto Cedar from Logan, it's pretty tough in the mornings, as I think the mayor can attest to, probably better than anybody. Also, turning left onto Logan from Cedar, it can really take a while to make that turn, and anything to keep that traffic moving would be appreciated. And I think it's a great idea, and just wanted to let you know I support it.
Thank you for your comments, Don. Anyone else in council?
Joni Axel again. I have just a note from Brett Olson, who is the director of the Y. He wasn't able to be here tonight, and I just will quickly say, dear Muscatine City Council, the Muscatine Community Y is excited to see a new and improved roadway and trail completed on Cedar Street. The current situation creates a very unsafe environment for vehicles and pedestrians. We're pleased that the city is addressing these issues going forward. The Y has lent its support to the project by donating the necessary land at the intersection for the project to proceed. Even though Brett does not claim to be an engineer nor a road designer, he did want to say that the Y looks forward to its completion and has always had concern for the kids. And I would just throw in one extra little comment. I think of Cedar Street as being everybody's street. It doesn't just belong to the neighbors, it belongs to all of us. The city of Muscatine used to start at Parham, and now it starts well past Hauser Street. And so when you see kids and the exchanges of kids that are going over to the housing on Logan, the Y, riding bikes, walking, and whatever other vehicles the kids come up with, it is the street on which we all travel and on which we all look for safety. So thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Mr. Harvey.
Alan Harvey, 2206 Oak Valley Drive, and I'm one of those people who question the usefulness of a roundabout, but having said that, I read what was at least was on the website about the roundabout, and I'm not sure two things: how a roundabout helps pedestrians get across Cedar Street if Cedar Street is not going to stop. And the other question is, when traffic is heavy on Cedar Street and you can't get from Logan onto Cedar, how will a roundabout help that? If the traffic's so heavy, you still got to pull out into the stream of traffic on the roundabout. And so, and then I'm not sure how the roundabout, they say it slows traffic. The only way it would slow traffic is if it actually impedes the flow of traffic. So those are my questions, comments that I'm not sure how the roundabout accomplishes those particular issues. And maybe it does, and I'm not aware of the explanation, but that's my concern right now, to where I wouldn't particularly endorse having a three-way stop sign there, but there's a three-way stop sign at Parham. That seems to be acceptable, so why not a three-way stop sign at Logan? And during school hours, you end up stopping up there at the school entrance too. So, I mean, stopping traffic on Cedar is nothing new. So anyway, those are my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else? Laura.
Thank you, Council. Laura Legis, 1221 Glenwood Lane.
You have 3 minutes.
It
just
will.
kidding.
It will. I'm coming as a resident, not a city staff member. But as a parent in this community, I have 2 children. We moved back here 7 years ago, and I moved back to my hometown because it is a safe community. And I have children that are into the middle school age that also enjoy the Y, and it's a great opportunity for them to walk from school to the Y, and it's in a safe environment. It is a very big concern. I drop my children off at school. I head down Cedar Street to my office many mornings, and the flow of traffic is a challenge. And you do see things that you think an accident's going to happen or someone's going to be hit by a car. These are all things that I think this plan is certainly looking at, and I certainly, as a parent and a resident, am in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Laura. Anyone else?
John, please go ahead. While they're pulling up, could you just click on the PDF on the right-hand side that's down there, so with the design, or Randy?
John might help me with this.
The red PDF on the bottom should have it on the right-hand side. That's the current design. What's the other one?
Okay, so with the,
You can just go down and go to this one. The lower one.
Does that design have where it says Cedar Street? Is that a meridian? Raised curved area in the middle?
Is there not a left turn lane there?
Left turn lane on Cedar headed to Logan.
There is? Okay.
And John, was that a painted median or a raised median on the original design?
There's John Lutz, city engineer. What you're looking at is a concept of a roundabout for the intersection, and the roundabout includes means of getting the pedestrians across. It has paved medians for the pedestrians, so you can cross with one lane of traffic and wait in the middle, and then cross your second lane. The center that is open can be grass or art or whatever you want to do with it. You don't want to get, trees or anything to obstruct vision in it. The area that is hatched out is a truck apron, and that is to accommodate semi-trucks, fire trucks, whatever that's larger than a standard vehicle. All roundabouts are designed to this one would obviously be to carry truck traffic. And the islands that are shown on this are for separating traffic. This is a little bit different than just a regular road in that we have a 3-lane road here, so this traffic is already separated. So the island does work well. When we sent this design, this was our concept plan, and we sent this to DOT, and they had some suggestions to tweak it and change it, the configuration. But the speed that Alan was talking about, the experts will configure the roadway such that when you're approaching it, you will automatically slow down based on the curve and how the road's tightening in on you, so that when you hit the roundabout, you're going the same speed around the corner as all of the rest of the cars, and then you just merge in line.
I believe that the high school refers to that as the zipper effect.
Is there any other questions while I'm up?
What's the diameter on the roundabout?
They vary from 90 to 120 and larger.
What's the
this
proposed?
diameter shown is 95, and that's what we submitted. Their results were that they thought it needed to be bigger.
Bigger than 95?
Correct. To accommodate future traffic and turning
110.
movements, and also move traffic over and slow it down.
That's one item that would be accomplished, or the final design or recommended design to IDOT would be accomplished through peer review to determine the exact size. It could still come back to this 95, or it could be slightly larger. We're not sure at this point.
If the council were to give you an indication to proceed to the design phase, is there a component in there that it actually is a feasibility study? Or is this the feasibility study?
We submitted a package which was called the feasibility study to the DOT that included all the items that we talked about tonight, traffic volume, left turn vehicles, is it a truck route, all kinds, accident history, and they look at all that and they come back with recommendations, and there were recommendations of increase in the diameter and a different lane configuration in such that when you're coming to the roundabout, the entrance curves to the right significantly so that you have to slow down. You're not supposed to stop. You're supposed to merge into the traffic.
Sure. And will DOT give us a specific recommendation that says this is or is not the thing to do, or are they just going to give recommendations to your proposal? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. The group that reviewed it from Wisconsin gave a recommendation that they felt it was suitable for this intersection. And yeah, further design details we have to work out.
It's part of the check plans that we have to submit to DOT, so without their approval, they will not fund it. So in the end, they will give their blessing to the design as whether or not it'll work before they fund anything.
All right, thank you.
Randy, while you're up there, what happened to the roundabout down on Hershey Avenue? Because I remember reading that a couple of years ago, and then that just,
You're talking about the Carver Corner.
Yeah.
It's not been decided yet.
I'm not right. That's a long way. When we address the Mississippi Dry Corridor project, then that is an option. It's always been presented as an option, but it's not something that has ever been settled on as to whether or not this is a feature that the city wants. I guess before going further, this gentleman's been standing up here for comments.
Yes. Hi, Kelly McGriff, 1914 Wildwood Lane. I'm a resident of Stonebrook. Appreciate your time and let me have a minute to speak. Overall, I'd like to say I'm very pleased with the Cedar Street project, and we're happy to have it and improve the safety, especially of the pedestrians. I see the kids walking every single day. And, we moved here 8 years ago, and we thought it'd be great to live in that neighborhood and have our kids walk across to the Y. And it became very prevalent, or very clear to me, that that wasn't safe. And so they haven't been able to do that. So, I support any idea that would allow for the safe crossing of kids at that intersection. Of course, we would like to protect a fair easement to the property lines there at Stonebrook. So my property line does go butt against that, and so I just want to make sure that we're fair there on the easement and as far as that comes over, and also, and I think it is, from what I can see on the drawing, from what I can tell, it seems like we're treating that fairly. And then another thing I can't really tell is how far this raised median comes out. So just to maintain the ability to turn left and right out of Stonebrook is important to us as well. So I think that it is, but I just wasn't sure from the drawing whether you could turn left out of Stonebrook. But outside of that, I think, I personally am supporting of anything that we can do to improve the safety getting across Cedar Street.
Thank you, sir.
Address a couple items that he was discussing. When the embankment over on the north side of Cedar Street there causes us to keep the roundabout away from Stonebrook, and it would start to increase costs if we wanted to push it so far north at that area. We do have the trail we want to put on that side and keep on that side and accommodate, but we don't anticipate the need to acquire any Stonebrook property for easements for the project. A second item was about medians and how will that work as far as pulling out of Stonebrook. We tried to maintain the left turn lane. If you were coming, say, from the high school area and headed towards Stonebrook, you would still have a left turn lane in the center to stop, let other traffic go by you, and then turn left and have your own center lane. And then you'd also be, from Stonebrook, be able to turn left coming out and right, obviously.
Thank you, John. Additional comments, Randy?
Nothing more than to answer questions.
Levine?
Good evening. I'm Levine Payne. I live at 2502 Forest Parkway, and I drive Cedar Street daily or several times a day on occasion. That's a bad intersection. Everyone's aware of that in the winter. Then people get tired of waiting in line coming on Logan Street and make some foolish decisions at times. But as a much younger man, I had the opportunity to live in Italy for 3 years, and traffic circles are ubiquitous in Europe, and the learning curve is very short. One time through them and you figure out how they work. Much more recently, about 4 years ago, we spent a winter in New Zealand, and again, traffic circles everywhere there. The issue there is they drive on the left side of the road. That's much more concerning than a few traffic circles. But so I'm a definite fan of roundabouts, traffic circles, and I think this situation is a good place for one. So, thanks.
Thank you, Levine. Anyone else? I think I'd like to organize comments from council, and unless you have anything to add, Councilman Lorette.
Do you want me to start comments, or do you want to start with Tom and work your way down?
I want to start with you and work our way this way.
All right. First off, I'd like to thank staff for continuing to go through this project and identify potential issues and look for improvements. You'll never hear me complain about bringing up new ideas that maybe we can do this, maybe we can do that. My concerns, Mr. Harvey touched on a couple of them, but when we decided to implement this Cedar Street project, one of the things we decided to do was put in a north side trail on the school side of the street. And the reason for that was the safety of the pedestrians. That was paramount. That's why we didn't put it on the south side of the street, because we knew the kids taking the shortest route from point A to point B wouldn't cross the street. My concern with this is with the Y right there, I would rather consider this an extended school zone. And I actually sent out a recommendation yesterday, or at least a suggestion, that we could put in a pedestrian right-of-way on the west side of this intersection and basically say that when there are students or pedestrians that want to cross over from the trail to go over to the Y, the traffic must stop. And I understand that impedes traffic flow, but I think the paramount issue is the safety of the kids. Other than that, I mean, I have no fear of or lack of understanding or bias against roundabouts. Mr. Landy spoke about how they're used in Coralville. I drive to North Liberty to work every day. I often use one of those roundabouts. They can be utilized successfully. They can be implemented well. But I think in this case, at least at this point, I'm not convinced that a roundabout is the best solution.
Phil.
Okay. I'm adamant up to this point that there's not going to be a roundabout in Muscatine. I I don't think they're necessary in this area especially, for a variety of reasons. We keep talking about slowing down traffic and not impeding traffic, which is kind of an oxymoron or something. We're not doing the same thing here. Are we going to slow down traffic and make it safer for children to cross? Then we could eliminate the center turn lane in a certain area, or at least put a raised meridian into the area, in this area, so that they can gather at the trail, cross one lane of traffic, cross the second lane of traffic, and get to where they need to go without putting a roundabout in. The experts, we keep hearing about experts. Experts built the bypass that goes around Muscatine, which was thought several years later to be a total disaster, and the DOT doesn't build them like that anymore. They want more separation between the roadways, but the experts at that time, that's what they came up with. The one item that people haven't mentioned is the grade at which the roadway goes, is it on Cedar Street. This winter I saw a semi setting up on the hill, not being able to move. Car up behind, a couple cars up behind. They can't go anywhere because they're waiting for the semi to move. I pulled up next to them. My vehicle was able to move, partly because I was going downhill. But I pulled up and stopped next to a couple of these people and suggested that they take Logan, go turn around at Stonebrook, whatever, get out of the way because that semi needs to back down. Transversing Cedar Street in the wintertime, especially if it is slick, you want a straight shot, you want some momentum, and the roundabout, it's not pictured up there now, but when you come up and you got to take a jog to the right in order to get onto the roundabout, if the grade is as steep as it is currently, I don't think you're going to make it around the roundabout. So is there some plan to level this area? And if so, what are we going to do about from Logan on out? I know we were talking about cutting that down some, but I think the grade is an issue. The diameter of the roundabout and some information I looked at last night, or no, the night before, indicated that the 90 to 110 feet diameter was the range, but the better ones are 100, 110 feet in diameter to give people and vehicles, larger vehicles, an easier time, and they don't need that center, whatever you call it, I don't remember the term, for the semi, the rear wheels to go up onto in order to get there. So this Carver Corner one has not been decided. There were two others included in that particular project that some experts decided to pull out for one reason or another, and now we're being proposed with this one. But I think if we're wanting to make things safer for children, it may have been better to put sidewalks on both sides of the street, have a crosswalks, stop signs, get rid of the 3-lane, or put a meridian in. I think there's other things that can be done other than putting in a roundabout. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Phil. Scott?
I think that this is an application for a roundabout that is more appealing than the average roundabout application. I think Randy touched on it earlier with the high pedestrian traffic in the region, in the area because of the Y, because of the high school. We're going to be installing a trail on the north side of Cedar. That'll increase the pedestrian and bike traffic, I believe. And I think this is, I would be fully supportive of this concept. I think for all those reasons, it's just a better application than even an average. And I think an average application has a lot, look at what the experts have to say. So I think it's, and Randy also touched on, we don't want people just, high speed down the hill, down Cedar, heading east. and this would address that. As far as Alan's question about left from Logan onto Cedar, I think just the design of the roundabout, you're making a right turn on and around the roundabout, if I'm understanding it correctly, so I'm a supporter.
Osama?
Yes. I've been thinking here for the last half an hour, and wow. First of all, I will respectfully disagree with fellow counsel Lorette and Phil Fitzgerald. So, and I have a story to tell, but I'm hesitant to tell my story for two reasons. One, I don't think I can top Mr. Landy as a storyteller. That's one. Two, my wife, nor her parents, nor my parents had a farm that I incorporate that with the roundabout to go from there. So, Roger, thanks very much for your input there. I started driving when I was 14 years old. I was raised and started driving in Amman, Jordan. That's where I was raised. And if somebody asks, you are in Jordan, Amman, where did you live? And the landmark that I can give, it's between 5th and 6th circle. And for a stretch for about probably, don't quote me on this here because I know you guys are going to Google it and look it up, I would say probably 12 miles stretch. We have about 8 traffic circles, they call them here. We call them roundabout. It's the same difference. So driving since I was 14, knock on wood, I never got in an accident driving the roundabout, the traffic circles, traveling over in Europe and some other countries where the roundabout is very popular, never got in an accident. So I come to Iowa here. In the winter, it's snow and sleet and ice, and I've been accused being driving like an old lady, so which is fine. But the bottom line here, fear of change, it's acceptable, it's understandable, I think, but we don't know how good these are, the roundabouts, till we try them. And people are probably here never drove around a roundabout, and they're making judgment already here from what they're hearing. But the statistics that we have, and it's provided to us here, it tells a different story. With that being said, I think I would like to experience that here in Muscatine, to give it a shot, and it will be probably with the expert recommendation here. It might be something good for the community here and for a healthy community here in Muscatine. So with that being said, I think I will be in favor in that. So thank you.
Thanks for your comments, Osama. Councilman Bynum.
Mayor, it's time for me to tell a story, like everybody else. But it won't be as long as yours, Osama.
That's good, Bob.
My story begins in Omaha, Nebraska, where my son lives. He just moved in the last 12 months, and he introduced me to a roundabout. It's the first time I've ever gone through an intersection. I was nervous as heck driving up to that circle, and I kept on asking him, where do I go? Where do I go? Well, just follow the yellow brick road. And it was yellow, and it was brick, and it worked slick. It got the traffic through real quick. So even the old guys like myself can learn lessons from kids, actually, that do not have the fear of roundabouts. Slowing traffic, pedestrian safety, the kids' safety. We need something here in Muscatine that's futuristic. Why not a roundabout? Why not one where we're talking about? I was in favor of when Stanley Consultants recommended a possibility of a roundabout in my ward on Grandview Avenue, on Carver Pump's corner. But again, I didn't have any experience. I didn't know what I was talking about. I think it's neat. Muscatine, let's go get them. Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, if I'm understanding your comments correctly, Bob, You're okay with a roundabout as long as we color code it for you.
I second that motion.
Raise the price up.
Moving along, Jeanette.
Colored concrete.
Well, I don't have any stories to tell, you guys. But I'm the little old lady you were talking about that drives real slow and tries not to have wrecks.
Respect.
But I've traveled on quite a few of those in Europe, and of course I didn't drive over there, but it's really a neat way to get around and around your corner, and it's easy to figure out, so we may as well do it.
Thank you for your comments, Jeanette. Tom?
Okay, I first heard about this earlier this week when I was at Joni's Blue Zone meeting. I'll call it that. Actually, it was the public policy meeting, and several of those folks are in the room right now. I think it's fair to characterize the folks in that room as being in support of this. That said, I hadn't heard much about it until the paper came out this morning. And I heard an awful lot about it today. And the general theme of that was, well, nobody really said yes or no to a roundabout. They said, you got to do something about that corner. It's terrible. You can't navigate it. It's awful. So as far as the design concept is concerned, you know, I don't pretend to be a civil engineer. I'm going to leave it to those guys. And I do want to address one point. Mark, very early in the meeting, you said you were concerned about cost containment. And I agree. Cost containment's an important thing. But I don't think it's the only decision point here. So, you know, I'm fully in support of the roundabout. Let's give this one a shot and do it right. So,
very good. Thank you, Council. Greg, if my tally is correct, you have a consensus to move forward.
Yes, sir. We'll continue to work with the IDOT, the peer reviews. You know, it's important. It's been said many times that it gets done right. Thanks, sir.
Okay. Any additional comments from council? Randy, you?
Council, you've given us what we need to know. We will move forward with the design of this. And I think that you and the public are entitled to see what a design of this roundabout at this particular location is going to look like and how it will work. And with that, certainly the concerns that Council members Lorette and Fitzgerald have raised and the public might have need to be addressed and talked about at that particular time. So with that, we'll get back to doing our job.
Very good. Thank you, Randy. Council, any additional comments in general tonight? Is there a motion to adjourn? He's adjourned.
Oh, that was a nice quick one.